Okay, people, 7 o'clock. Start the recorder.
Wow.
You're all set? Okay, this is the Enfield Planning Board. We are meeting on December 28th, 2022 in the DPW conference room and on Microsoft Teams. Calling the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And planning board members present from my left, starting with Linda.
Linda Jones.
Dan Kiley.
I'm David Frack.
Bill Vermeer. Brad Rich. Tim Jennings. Kurt Contacts, alternates.
And our staff people.
Bob Taylor.
Whitney Banker.
Okay. Kate is not here.
Not on the board.
Not on the television. So Kurt, will you be a voting member at least until Kate comes in?
If you wish.
I do. Okay, first is public comments. Anybody from the public have any issues they wish to discuss that are not on the printed agenda? No. Meeting minutes from December 14th. Anybody have any questions or comments on the meeting minutes?
I have one. Page 5, number 203. At the end of the line, the fitness facility would accommodate about 6 people at one time, not once time.
Anything else?
No, I don't think there were.
I have a question slash change on line 363. Was it 7 communities in the state have 150-foot buffer, or was it 100-foot buffer?
It's 100.
So that five is incorrect.
That's
Over
incorrect.
100.
That's the only question I had.
I thought there were 3 or 7 that did have 100.
Over 100, yes,
100 or over.
right, 100 or over.
Over 150.
No,
No.
Okay.
over 100.
Bill, do you have anything for us?
Nope.
Brad, Tim, Kurt? I have a couple. This one is more of a question. I'm sure that on line 133, this is what was said. I thought the subject properties are in the R1 district. This is the,
What line are you on?
133. This is the lot line adjustments and mergers that we did.
Yeah,
Is that in the R1 district?
Yes,
And is there not town sewer out there?
Not at that lot.
Not at that lot.
It ends right at,
right.
Okay,
Dartmouth,
okay,
Lake Street, Dartmouth intersection.
that is why I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
196. The size of the building is self-limiting to enforce fire code. I understand what we're getting at on that sentence, but I don't think it's the size of the building being self-limiting.
the space.
The space, yes,
Yeah, the rental.
The lease space.
the least
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good catch.
and let me see if I had any others. Okay, See, Brad got the 150-foot buffer issue on 363. And line 415 and 416, the grant proposal is for funding the master plan, not for zoning changes. And that's it for me. Somebody wish to make a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 14th
Second.
as corrected.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes as corrected?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions. Minutes are accepted as corrected. Master plan, formal adoption. It's been 26 or 27 years since this town adopted a master plan. So I don't know if there's any particular format that we have to follow for the public hearing. So I'm gonna kind of just improvise as we go along. And to start off, I would like to call Lindsay Smith to come to the table. Lindsay is co-chair of the Master Planning Task Force. And briefly describe what we've done over the last 2.5 years.
Formally open, just, yeah,
Thank you.
that's about the only procedure, then close,
Okay,
formally close.
Okay, so the public hearing for adoption of Enfield's master plan is now open. Lindsay, tell us what the task force has done.
Sure. Well, the work started before the task force was formed by the planning board. So back, I think in 2019.
19.
A plan was made, or a plan to make a plan was
course.
made. And it was determined to focus in on five chapters to take a chunk out of it versus trying to tackle, I think there's 13 suggested ones. There's 2 that are required by the state. So that was all predetermined, and then obviously COVID hit, so some plans got put on hold. But I don't even know when, what year is it, 2022? Is it 2021? Yeah.
Yeah,
The task force was formed. It was, there were multiple representatives from the planning board, and then other folks from the community who had expressed an interest and represented different facets of Enfield community, put in applications. And so we started off with about 12 people, right?
I think it was 11,
Was
but
11?
you know, I'd accept 12.
So, some came, some went, some unfortunately passed away. And so over the course of the next year and, well, now 2 years, we first worked on, or we started to do the work while we were waiting to see if the town would approve funding to hire a planner. And so the different jobs that we did was we divided into subcommittees. Each of those subcommittees came up. We did after town meeting, which was outside on the coldest day in May. That we had that same weekend, we did a public forgive me, not just, what was it? What do we call it?
It was our first interaction.
It was our first introduction. So we had questions that we had come up with. We had Post-its, we hung out all day. People came and put answers up or asked different questions, gave us some thoughts. So it was sort of our public input session. That's what it was. So it wasn't, it was more informal, had conversations, but really about gathering bits of information to help give us direction. Took that information, started to develop questions using past surveys, using surveys that we found from other towns. Whittled all of that down, and then we were lucky to hire, meanwhile, we put out RQF. We were lucky to hire Brandy from PlaySense, who helped refine our survey, and we were able to get that out to the community. So put that up on the website. Meanwhile, we were also attending every farmer's market in 2021. So a different subcommittee was present at each farmer's market to interact with the public in different ways. We had questions, all sorts of different things that we were asking, or just there to gather information. We did the survey. We also had educational meetings, some educational series. So in the month of October, every Thursday, we were both on Zoom and in person doing an educational series. And we had different subcommittees or different factions that we were then giving out information and interacting with people to take specific questions. So that was October of 2021. Survey results came in. I think we then in February. I didn't have a chance to look things up. We had a visioning session with the community. So we did 3 meetings over a weekend, 2 in person, 1 virtual, where we did visioning sessions, and so had different community members who signed up come in. All of that. Meanwhile, we met twice a month, or every, the second and fourth Monday. So the committee was consistently meeting, refining, working on different chapters, taking the information we had gathered, being led by our fearless consultant, who is here virtually, and putting together all of this information, and then lots and lots of proofreading. We did have, we had a focus group when we had a rough draft. So we had focus groups for each of the chapters. So people who volunteered to be a part of that, give us some initial feedback. That was really informative. We also then just recently had, at the end of September, we did a sort of it wasn't end of September.
November.
It was November, yeah. End of
13th.
November, mid-November. We did with most of the plan put together. We had an informal hearing and had people come in and together see if we had got it right. More edits, and here we are. I think it's in really good shape. I think that we have heard what the community have said. We've given multiple opportunities to interact with as many different people as possible, and tried to do it in various forms. And I think we've put forth a pretty good plan.
That's a really great summary of 3 years of very intensive, community-driven work.
Yeah, fair to say, we did a ton of outreach in various forms. I'm not sure we could have done any more. It was several different types and over a long period of time. A lot of input.
I think we would all agree there's still groups of people that are hard to get in touch with that we missed. I think that there's always looking for ways to improve upon that, but I think that's with we didn't get back the number of surveys that I was aiming for. I owe a few people dinner. But there is other ways, but short of knocking on every single door, and really kind of more invasive techniques. We also had to think about cost. I mean, it would be great to be able to mail a survey to every single household. Not possible.
A good example of the people that we didn't reach were like the renters.
Yeah.
We did not get enough response from people who rent in town and don't own. We tried.
Renters. I think we always feel like we miss seasonal residents because they're not generally here to interact with the town in that way. Some are, some do. But I think that we miss that, and there's, different, probably socioeconomic groups and things that it's, as anyone knows. I would say that statistically speaking, from my background in statistics, we are statistically sound. I think Brandy would agree with that. And I think that it's, there's a lot of good input, and it gives us directions where we want to go. Also gives us a good springboard for the next 5 chapters. Shouldn't take 3 years.
It won't, only 2. Any questions or comments from board members? Seeley?
Yes, I'd like to see something that says that's the beginning of the master plan, something that says that that's not the whole master plan. There's more to come in that title, because people are gonna say, well, that's the master plan. Well, there's a chunk of it missing that haven't been done or, talked about, and important things. So I just, you call it the master plan, everybody's gonna say it's been done. You know what I'm saying?
Kurt?
Oh, I have 2 comments. First, to respond to Sally's. I mean, it'd be real easy on the cover page, one of the front pages there, just say future chapters and just list what we already plan to do.
Table of contents.
With dates.
I mean, we do have some verbiage that I can't remember exactly where it is. Lindsay, you're.
It's right in the beginning. It's in the intro. It is future, like we mentioned multiple times throughout the beginning, throughout the recommendations, that this is just the start. And we've always used that language. I don't think you can say master plan part 1. I mean, I just don't think you can, but
I think you can.
we want lots of
If it's a
language.
phase or.
You could say chapters 1 to 5.
Right, but you wouldn't put that in the title. There are chapters 1 through 5. There's placeholders in the master plan. I think if you look at it. So,
Chapters 1 through 5 of 13.
well,
Oh, so that's-
you don't put that in the
Yeah,
title.
that's a
So
moving number.
this is telling me that you haven't looked at it. Because we have it in there. So,
Well, that isn't gonna help. What I'm saying, this is going in the record, saying the master plan, we approved the master plan. That's going in the record, and everybody that sees that thinks, well, that's it. They're not gonna sit down and read this. You know what I'm saying? That's the
Okay.
truth.
Well,
Okay.
That's the way it is. That's what happens.
well then,
So I think your suggestion's good, Linda.
Wha-
It's to let them know, say it in the minutes.
okay,
I guess my response is, we've gotten a commitment from the select board, right, to do the next 5 chapters.
we've
yes,
gotten the commitment to do it. We've gotten the commitment to
Get funding for it.
ask for the money.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether the town
Yeah.
votes the money or not,
Right.
or the grant comes through or not, is still to be determined.
And would this work if we just put in the table of contents, the next 5 chapters with an expected date of whatever we had said, 2024, I think, or 2023,
Or
2024.
Well, I understand the problem is, whereas the old master plan was just a typewritten sheet, and you could easily insert information. This is technically a little more difficult to do, right, Lindsay? It's,
Oh, yeah.
yes, I mean, it's not impossible, so, and Brandy's here, so we should definitely get her to weigh in on this. I think that, we have funding. I don't think if people aren't gonna read the master plan, they're not gonna go back and read minutes. So those are a lot harder to find. And so putting it in the minutes, I don't think is really a way to get that information.
No.
I don't think you want to say this is a draft. The chapters that are here are done and they will be put into play and they are active. We will add on and you will have to re-adopt the plan. So right now, the 5 chapters that are done are the plan. It
Right.
does state in there that there's more to come, but but we don't want to say pending,
No,
because then you can't start using the
Right.
first 5 chapters.
this has to be accepted as the plan.
This has to be,
Yeah,
it has to be
It has to
accepted.
be an accepted plan.
Yeah,
I mean, considering that there are only 2 required chapters,
Right.
and we've got 6 or 5
Right.
or whatever it is, it becomes a valid plan.
So, for example, we had the implementation chapter, right? And we were like, oh, well, we can go back in there and update that. Well, we can't just go in there and update it, not because it's a formatting thing, but because every time if we update an implementation chapter, you all would have to re-adopt the plan. So this is the plan as is, with more to be added to it.
Right.
But right now, this is the active plan. And then in a year or two, but if you just,
In 2 years, we will have to,
Read it.
You'll have to-
approve
Or
a 10 the 10
amend
chapter.
you will
or
have to, yeah, you're not just gonna be
Right.
approving the next, you're not gonna
5.
5 chapters, you
You're
will
gonna be
be
approving the
reapproving
entire thing again.
all 10 chapters
It's gonna be
again.
as if it was a new master plan in 2
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Linda,
So I
please.
have a question.
Mhm.
If that is the plan and there are only 5 subjects and there are 10 plus, what about these other subjects? Do they still use the old master plan as their guide? Or does that just drop away and only these 5 chapters are the entire plan?
well,
Drops away.
From a legal point of view, I think
Yeah.
what you see is what you get.
right, and the fact that we haven't used the old master plan
In 20
since the day it was
years.
adopted.
Yeah, so most,
Yeah.
most,
That says
I mean,
something.
I've
most
been
of
on
the
board
next,
long enough and I've never
most of
seen
the,
a copy
the
sitting on a
next
table.
chapters are not using anything that's in the old master plan as it is. So
Okay.
there's guiding stuff. So you all picked, I should say, you all decided on the 5 chapters that are probably what might be the most, I won't say the most important, but the ones that are the most, far reaching, exactly. All of these chapters, they're all intertwined. And we found that as when we were working on it, that they were all, that you can't talk about transportation without talking about housing, without talking about economic development. You can't do all of that. So the next 5 chapters are going to find lots of the next 5 chapters, which are based off of committees and commissions and established groups, organizations in the town. I don't even say organizations, established committees and commissions, official ones, for the town, are already doing work. They don't have a guiding document that's helping them. I mean, does the Heritage Commission go back to you're on the Heritage Commission still, correct? Are you using the master plan from 25 years ago to guide your work?
The Heritage.
What
Commission
happens if
wasn't
somebody
here
comes
25
in,
years
Okay.
ago.
wants to do a development, pull in do some work with the, older housing?
Okay,
All right,
Housing
that's
there.
not in the master plan.
yes, it
is
is.
Of course
Well,
it is.
it's mentioned, but
Yes,
it's not
it is.
really.
Sealy, you just worked on this for a year, so
I
you
know
don't
I
know
did,
what's
I
in
know
it.
I did, but I don't see going in and telling everybody in this town and making a big deal that this is the master plan. And it isn't.
It's just, no.
It's the beginning of it.
okay, but, so then we should just not adopt it and wait 2 more years.
No, I think
Well, that's
it's
the
fine
option.
adopting it.
That's the option.
No, it is, it's
There's
fine
already
to
been a
adopt it, but
suggestion, what
later.
about putting in the other chapters and say in process? In the contents.
It's like we did with the, natural resource. We had 2
There's a
phases.
paragraph right there that's on page
2 or 3.
2 or 3, because 5 is not correct, because that's including the chapter that talks about, whoops, don't go past.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so, but that's, that it's consisting of these. Legally, we only have to have 2. So you could have a master plan with 2. The next ones are energy, conservation commission, heritage. I mean, they are very important chapters. They're very important for all of the functioning of the town, but not every decision that's gonna be made as far as housing development or roads or whatever are gonna need to hinge on all of those. And so, again, we picked the ones that were the most far reaching, that are going to really impact a lot of major development issues if you're looking at or not developing issues, the environmental one, and now we're gonna add more in that are gonna add, again, are gonna make things more refined. But I don't think you hold off on it. You could have placeholders, but then it just looks like, do you want to hand a book that's half empty? I mean, that just sounds weird.
Yeah, yes, actually, it's a good idea, Lindsay.
But
I'm
it's-
glad you
But
suggested that.
I mean, I think that's, and again,
Just you
we
could
should,
list the proposed new chapters and
they
just-
are in there. I'm not sure. I think we should ask, I
Yeah.
think we should refer to Brandy, who is the professional here, who writes master plans for everybody, and see what would be a standard.
So I think Lindsay, you made most of the points I was going to make in response to the conversation that was ongoing here. But yes, it's legal to adopt just what you have, and it is the master plan from the point at which you adopt it. It has what it needs to have legally to be adopted as it exists right now. And what I would add to that is that you've got the umbrella chapters. So you've got the vision and you've got the land use chapter. And those are the two critical ones. Those are actually the two required ones, but that's the guiding overarching direction. All of the topic-based chapters are underneath that big umbrella. And so those can fold in, and it's unlikely, you're not thinking that it's going to change the overall direction and policies and planning ideas that you've got. They're just going to add more depth and nuance and detail, right? They're not going to alter the big picture. And so that is there. And you think you did pull up the page where you found where that was listed. If you guys might not remember, but you actually talked about as a group at some point whether you wanted to put those upcoming chapters on the table of contents page, and in the end decided on that paragraph that's in the intro. So
Well, what I remember is that we brought that up and we were told that it was a complicated formatting issue and it was easier just to not have it in there. I don't think we really,
Yeah, I don't
Decided.
recall that. I don't recall that, because if we wanted to add it, we could, because it's in electronic form and it's a web page and you could move things around, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think it's a formatting issue. I think the issue is, do we want to, on the first page, insinuate that the plan's not done? And I don't think we want to do that. I think we want to say this is the plan, and we mention a couple pages later in the intro, the additional chapters, and I think that's sufficient.
I agree.
I agree.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm all set either way. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a problem. As long as I've seen it, it's there.
Okay. I know where Linda stands. Kurt?
Yeah, I'm happy with the verbiage that you have. Future chapters basically are what it
Yeah.
says, something to that
It's in a
effect.
paragraph.
Yeah.
Do
Tim?
we have something on the town website that explains that, or in the?
For anybody, I think Lindsay summed it up well. For anybody who's gonna bother to read the plan, they're gonna run into this paragraph on page 4.
And we will have, and so on the town website, it links over to our website. It links over to the plan website. There's no page on the town website for the plan. It goes to enfield-leaps.org.
That's where it will go.
Right.
Because there are some issues with the company that owns the town website.
And I think if you look at master plan, if you click on that on the town website, it automatically redirects you
Yeah.
over to that. So, there is language there, and easily that says what our next steps are. So it's all there. If you just, it's all there and it's easily done.
Anybody else wanna, go ahead.
Am I understanding correctly that it'll be a couple of years before there's more added to it? Like
Well-
conservation and heritage?
I think it's going to be a process that begins sometime in 2023 and ends sometime in 2024.
And that's included in the paragraph, that those things will be.
It's not in the paragraph because when the paragraph was written, we really didn't have the time frame established and, you know, I don't know when we're gonna start, which directly affects when we're going to finish. Some of it depends on funding, some of it depends on whether we actually have our town meeting in March as we're supposed to.
So it
No.
may never happen.
No,
What?
So it may never happen.
No.
That's incorrect.
No.
That's an incorrect statement.
No,
It will happen.
we are,
But there won't be any indication as to when it will happen.
well, can I answer?
Go ahead.
We don't have an exact timeline yet because, A, we need to get this plan, we need to get the plan as is adopted. And then we are reconvening the master plan task force. We need to find new members. From each of we're planning to, our intention is to have people from each of the, committees or commissions that are focused of the next 5 chapters, have a representative, be a part of so we've got, there's time. And so we'll hopefully meet again in January. We need to send out invitations. We'll hopefully start to get a group back together maybe about February. We have to get funding, in order to hire, keep Brandy on board, because this is not something that we can do on our own. We just don't have the technical experience and whatever. And then it's a matter of doing and then we know the process now.
Well, that's what,
We know the process.
this is what I understood from the meetings that I went to.
Sure.
But this is what I'm hearing from.
So no, you're thinking like 2 years, but remember,
That's what I heard.
right, but it may take 2 years or 2024 because we want to go to all farmers markets. That takes the entire summer.
But the process is gonna start sooner than that.
Yeah, we're,
Yeah.
like,
Well, that's what I
I
had
just
thought,
wanted a
but
break
it
from
didn't sound like-
holidays.
in their defense, Shirley, this committee may want to take a couple of months off because they've been working for 2 years.
So we.
Every other Monday.
No,
We've
but I mean,
taken.
2 months is different than 2 years.
No, we're starting our work.
And it doesn't affect the Conservation Commission at all that you don't have a chapter in the master plan.
Right.
It doesn't affect the Heritage Commission at all that there's not something in the master plan. That chapter is
Yeah.
not in the master plan at this point.
So we're getting right back to work. It's just then it's gonna be a matter of farmers markets, surveys, giving plenty of time for that, public meetings, different types of public input sessions, educational meetings. We wanted to give these next 5 chapters the same thought and consideration that we gave the first 5. We have a little bit of we have less of a learning curve. And hopefully we'll get them, we've pretty much have worked out different ways to get the funding. So we're setting ourselves up for guaranteed funding. So then, keeping Brandy on board, hopefully. But all of that stuff takes time. And then, granted, we run into, I don't imagine that we will get it all written by next Christmas. And so then we're looking at the 2024. When in 2024? Will it be this time in 2024? Probably not. I would imagine, we're looking at 18 months, something like that. But the exact timeline is not.
I'm just happy to hear there's still the same plan.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're not even, we've barely taken a break.
Dr. Tice?
I have one question. You're talking about the necessity of funds. What if the town meeting turns down the application for funds, and what if your grants don't come through? Where are you going to go for the money you say you need to complete this project?
Well, if those 2 sources don't come through, then I think we're dead in the water.
No, we have to do it internally.
Volunteer.
What does
Volunteer.
that mean?
We have to do it internally, volunteer. If we can't hire someone, then we as a town will do it internally with a committee.
So in that event, then the other chapters that you're talking about won't get done?
No,
No, they'll get
That
done,
would get done by volunteers.
right? I mean,
Probably take longer.
it may take longer, but it will get done.
You got to realize that conservation heritage have defined
Right,
already.
legally
through the
defined,
RFAs.
right.
Yes.
They're RSA'd. So
Exactly.
all
Like
we're
they
doing,
do.
all this is a guideline for the town.
Mhm.
All of this entire thing is a guideline.
Yeah, and it's actually like, the chapters for conservation or heritage are not for the heritage or conservation to use. You guys are helping to write the chapter, so other people use those. They have a
I'm not
reference
talking
point.
about that, I'm just trying to figure out if we don't get any money.
Well, right now, the task
be
force is
chapters.
all volunteer. So we'll keep
Brandy
working.
is not, and you
Correct.
say
No.
you need her.
Well, eventually, yeah, so we'll get a lot of the work done until we can find the money and then give it all to her. The work will still get done. Will it be able to get formatted in this gorgeous
Right.
webpage like we have right now? No. But that doesn't mean that the work stops. It just it'll get done until we can get the money to pay her to then take it all and make it, look professional. So the work will still continue.
I'm not gonna talk with select board, but I was at the select board meeting when there was a presentation. The select board is behind putting this money in for the next 5 chapters. And that's what came out of the meeting. You were there also.
Legislative body, correct? The select board can't mandate that the money be put into the budget.
Nope,
No,
So
No.
you still depend upon.
it has to be voted on.
It has to be
It will
voted.
be a warrant article.
That's
no,
all I
it's,
wanted
no,
to
it's going to
say.
be in the budget itself. It'll be in the total budget, not as a warrant article.
Is that the way it's
Yeah.
configured now?
It's gonna go into the budget,
But
Okay,
that still has
that's
to be
even
voted
better.
on by the people.
The total budget does,
the
yeah,
total budget, yes,
right. And remember, you can't do line item,
right.
you know.
You're voting on a bottom line.
You're voting on a bottom line budget, so there's support for it.
Tim?
Well, while I'm not enthused about leaving the table of contents without the future chapter citation, it's not a big enough issue that I'm gonna pound the table about, so we'll move on with that, but I'm wondering if in our motion to adopt the master plan, the new master plan, that we might insert some words that make it clear that the 1980 whatever master plan, whatever the year was,
95.
is superseded by this new master plan. Just make that clear, that it's not a document that has any impact, it's no longer a guidance document for the town.
Brandy, is that legally
That's
correct?
fine. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And also, we could even say in our adoption motion that this is the first 5 of anticipated 10 chapters or something like that. So at least in the minutes, it's recorded that, we're acknowledging, because that's what you were talking about, Stephen. Now, I don't think anybody's gonna read those minutes. But, it's something we could do.
would you care to put that motion on the floor? And we can,
Close the
we
public
can
hearing first.
debate it,
Well,
and,
well, let me ask you, I guess I wasn't paying attention here. This is the public hearing for the.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, we vote and now it's,
we
and
vote to accept it or not to accept it.
Okay. Would it matter if we waited a week or 2 weeks before we actually held the vote then? Could we postpone?
Why?
Why?
Well, if we're gonna craft a wording, it's gonna
No,
take a
no, no,
little
no.
time.
yeah,
Listen, we talk, she's great. She writes down what you say.
right.
So you start with, I'd like to make a motion that we,
Adopt the 2023 master plan as
2022.
presented.
2022.
22,
22 master plan as presented.
well, he wants to put in those 2 sentences that you,
And it supersedes the master, any
And-
previous,
and
any previous
it's-
master plan.
Supersede, is that
supersede
the correct
Any
language?
previous master
Any
plan.
And any
Previous
previous master plan, or any master plan previously adopted by the town of Enfield?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Adopted by the plan.
Yeah, it's the planning board.
The planning.
Planning board,
board,
okay,
yeah,
planning board.
not the town.
And the planning
Right, yeah, the town
Yeah.
would be,
This is
Okay, by the
government
planning board.
committee.
This is how the sausage gets made.
And the planning board in the future plans to add 5 additional chapters.
well,
Oh, you said
I
it
would
a
just leave it
little
as
better
future
than that.
chapters.
Huh?
Future
I would just,
chapters.
future
Yeah,
chapters.
we give us flexibility.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't number them and I wouldn't label them.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
gives us
future
flexibility.
Because there could be 8.
Yeah.
Right.
I
it
second
could
that
be
motion.
4.
You have to close the public hearing first before
right.
you can make. the
All right.
motion.
So wait a minute, I didn't quite
Wait,
get that
has
sentence
everybody from the public had a chance to voice their opinion?
I just wanna make,
I'm not clear what the final thing was.
I just want to comment, for the committee itself. If I was to reach out went, I mean, I think you reached the people that were interested.
Mhm.
And
You-
same as the
Exactly.
percentage of people that show up at town meeting, they're the ones that are most interested. They make the effort.
You,
Yeah.
you reached the people that wanted to be reached.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And you have to
And-
acknowledge that even though you've reached an individual,
But
that
you
really,
have to
that person really represents a lot more people.
You have
Yeah,
developed.
That's true.
Yeah,
Right.
And they'll be-
statistically, I guess
And they'll come in.
you
and they'll
statistics.
be-
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You, the statistics should, statistics,
Yeah.
can't even say the word, never mind, learn it.
Okay,
So did you get the sentence in there you
So
wanted
No, I
about
think let's
future
make it
chapters?
close.
I am declaring the public hearing closed,
Yeah.
and,
What are y'all doing?
and,
Right.
and I want to thank Lindsay for giving an excellent summary of the work of the master plan task force. And I will now entertain a motion.
I'll bring pizza. Where's your dinner?
The one we just gave?
Whatever,
That
whatever motion anybody wants to put on the
You can help
table.
me
You read
with
it
this,
back?
Tim?
The note I have was to adopt the 2022 master plan as presented, which will supersede any previous master plan adopted by the planning board. I think there was a little bit more language that I lost.
And
in
then
translation.
just with the intent that future chapters will be
Added to.
added to,
Period.
added to.
Forthcoming.
Added.
The recognition,
Forthcoming.
an intent or recognition.
Future
that more
A
chapters.
recognition.
Chapters for forthcoming period.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Okay, can we have the clerk read this back?
Okay, so full motion is to adopt the 2022 master plan as presented, which will supersede any previous master plan adopted by the planning board with the intent that future chapters will be added.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, wait. Didn't quite read right, the last part.
I think it's recognition,
Well,
not
can
intent.
Can we get the motion on the table for discussion?
Sure, sure.
Okay,
And we can
so
amend it.
yeah, I recognize the second from Brad. And Tim has
A reword.
a friendly reword amendment to offer.
Well, I gotta see it. Can we put it up on the?
Is there any to write on your thing?
You want to come over here and read it?
Testing.
I wonder if you flip the two, so if you said to adopt the 2022 master plan as presented with the intent that future chapters will be added, the plan will supersede any previous master plan adopted by the.
I
I
like
like
that.
that better.
I like that.
I told you she was great.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
Brad will accept the.
Yeah,
Second?
exactly.
Yes.
There's a reason for it. There's a
Are we voting
On
on
the amendment.
the improvement
We
or
are-
the,
So we gotta do Robert's rules.
okay.
No,
I think you could just do it as amended.
I think we're just gonna do it as amended. If people want a final read back, Whitney will be very happy to do that. Do it, please.
All right, so the official wording is to adopt the 2022 master plan as presented with the intent that future chapters will be added. The plan will supersede any previous master plan adopted by the planning board.
All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The master plan is adopted.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, everybody.
Can I make
Thank
a
you.
motion?
You can.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the master plan. I would like to make a motion to thank the master plan, what were they called? Task force for their work.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
No discussion?
Aye.
No
Oh,
adding,
discuss-
no
discussion.
adding pizza to that? No. I'm
Is
kidding.
there,
Pizza.
is there discussion?
No. I'm
No
just kidding.
discussion.
Just
All
Get
kidding.
the budget for the next 5 chapters.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Same.
Brad, you should have abstained too. Did we get
You
One,
abstained
two,
because you were
They were
on.
on.
because we were on?
They don't want to thank themselves.
So we have only 3 people voting.
That's okay.
It's not a quorum.
Doesn't have to
One,
be.
two,
We have a quorum here.
3. and
Everybody
wait
else
a
voted
minute,
present.
uh,
Nobody voted
Kurt
no.
voting.
No, we voted
Kurt
abstain.
Voted present.
Wait a minute, Kurt
Yeah,
voted.
4.
Kurt voted.
Dan,
1,
Kurt,
2,
3, 4.
okay,
You're
4, okay, we're good. All right, all
That's this many.
right. Lindsay, would you be kind enough to accept the thanks of the planning board?
Would you stand up and bow?
Thank you.
We're-
Really,
Gracious.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we look forward to working on the next
Next week.
5 chapters or so. Oh God, is it? Maybe. It might.
Okay,
Anyways, keep up the good work.
Plus, for anyone
Thanks,
interested in
Lindsay.
the master plan task
Yeah,
force.
I have a letter ready to send out.
Public comment, good job.
okay,
Emails from me.
next, Brandy left. Gonna thank her, but too late. Next, we
All
have
right.
a public hearing.
Wow.
Land use case number P 22 12 04. Notice is hereby given that the Enfield Planning Board will hold a public hearing pursuant to RSA 231:158 concerning a designated scenic road in the town of Enfield. This meeting will be held at the Enfield Public Works facility at 74 Lock Haven Road and online via the Microsoft Teams web meeting platform. Login info available at www.enfield.nh.us on Wednesday, December 28th, 2022 at 7:00 p.m. A presentation and hearing will be held regarding an application from Liberty Utilities to cut and maintain vegetation on Lock Haven Road, a designated scenic road. And please identify yourself.
My name is Heather Green. I'm here on behalf of Liberty Utilities. And in regards to the RSA for scenic roads, to be able to do work on the scenic roads. So we have a customer who would like to get service, and in order for us to provide service, we need to put in poles and wires. And in order to put in the poles and wires, there are a few trees that need to be removed. So we have identified them. Here's a sketch you should have. We're putting in where the blue line is. That's where the new construction is. It is just secondary. It is not primary, so it doesn't need as much clearance. Pole 22 exists currently, and we have added pole 22-A. And then we gave you some pictures of some of the tree work that we're looking to do. We've identified 2 ash trees, a 7-inch and 11-inch, and some small brush. Anything less than 5 inches in diameter or 15 inches circumference, we don't identify, species and size. So there's a little bit of brush around the 2 poles. that we've kind of identified in some of the circles as well. So we're just looking, for, consent or approval to move forward with this. And then we also asked the landowners of those trees as well, for their consent.
Okay. Board members have any questions on the proposed tree work?
Looks pretty straightforward.
Just some general questions, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
I just noticed that the pole you're installing is 40 feet, maybe 3 inches, whatever, but basically 40 foot. Is that the new standard height?
That would be an engineering question that I can't answer, but I think it is pretty standard. 45 foot is for when we do, 3-phase and spacer
Mhm.
usually. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah,
when we do
I just-
secondary.
Assuming it's going to be, because it seems like all the newer poles I'm seeing going up are much taller.
That is true.
Yeah.
That
than
is a
what
true
was
thing, yes.
That they're replacing. And are you the forester then?
I am the forester. Sorry if I
okay.
didn't introduce myself that way. Sorry.
Okay, then my questions you could probably help me with. Any emerald ash borer been identified in this area?
You know, I haven't heard, once it got in the area around us, I haven't been paying particular attention to, I thought it was in Orange County. Or maybe, I haven't been watching it county by county.
Yeah,
I do know that I've seen it in Salem, that platform that we manage. I just have not seen it here,
okay.
per se. I am from Chicago and we had plenty of it back out there
Yes,
when I was
you know
there.
to look for.
Yes, absolutely. So I have seen it definitely in Salem. I just haven't seen it personally in this area.
Okay, how about ash dieback?
I saw that as soon as I moved here. Your ash trees are just, oh, they were so
Yeah,
challenged.
yeah.
They were challenged back in the Midwest, but here they grow much slower. And I think they have about everything against them there can be for a poor tree. So,
Mhm.
so many
Yeah, because
adversities.
I was sort of was wondering, because these trees labeled as being cut or ash trees, so
Mhm.
sort of got me thinking about it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were my nemesis back in, the green ash would fall apart like on a blue sky day for me back in Chicago.
Mm.
And the white ash would be nice and strong.
yeah,
But yeah, so ash trees here are definitely brittle and dying as well.
yeah. Okay,
Okay. Board members, any questions, comments?
Nope.
From the public? Sealy,
Yes,
are you
Um,
speaking as a conservation commission?
no, I'm speaking as,
As a-
Let's see, Lee.
I
Okay.
abut this also, which I didn't realize this was where this was gonna be happening.
Is that across from your house? Are
Yes,
you
it
in-
is.
So you are in
And
the
it's on
butter.
the side of my house.
You're in the
too.
butter.
I'm gonna pass out, for those of you, I know a lot of you do not know, are aware of the laws regarding scenic roads, and it's very, can be very misleading. And so I did some work and I also got some, out of the hard road to travel, which is all about the roads and laws and so on. I took out the scenic road part. And, so you can all, just get a little background on this. I know some of you are new to it, some aren't. But, I think it's important that you know. And previously, what I didn't see this time around was, well, now I did in the picture. But usually when the Liberty came in, they would mark the trees, the ones they were gonna cut. This one I see you have. So anyway, the public announcement sounded like they're gonna do the whole Lock Haven Road. And that's not the case?
No, just this
Okay.
one pole.
Okay, just to put the
It's
the
just,
line in.
it's not our cycle maintenance. This was just a customer wanting power. That's all.
Okay,
Okay.
which you probably don't know, that hole up there, I've been hit like crazy with everybody cut all their trees. Okay, I'm right here, this is blood, I'm right here, my house is right here. So, looking at your picture with this, I noticed that, it is a high thing. And you have a line side up here. Is that what you were talking to him about? When the line is down there? Are you gonna is that how far the line's gonna go? You gonna raise those lines up?
No. No, this is the existing primary on the road. Coming this way, we're coming out and doing a secondary across the street. So this is here. And this pole, this is a 40-foot pole over here.
Yep.
So it's gonna come across the
Are you
street
putting
this
a
way.
pole in there?
No, that pole exists, it's right there. There's
Okay,
no new pole going in there. The new
Okay.
pole is, all the poles
In the
are in
yard.
place currently. So the new pole, here's the new house here.
Yep,
So we put a pole there. That is the new
Okay.
pole. This one,
Right.
there's
I
nothing
see
new
it,
happening over here.
now what about in between here, about
Nope, it's-
cutting the brush, cause that's,
It's just the brush right here. So like this little tree here. And mostly the brush on the other side. So like, see the little brush around here?
yeah,
It is basically this here. It goes like this.
Yeah.
That is
Okay.
the extent of our.
all right.
Okay.
Okay,
I
Nothing
would
beyond
remind
that.
everybody that the planning board is only concerned with tree cutting within the right of way of Lock Haven Road. What's done on, private landowners' land
doesn't
in order to get power
matter
to
any
them
anyway.
is none of our concern.
Right, right. But just so that you know, the size of the trees and what the reason to have a scenic road. It's for the stone walls, try and preserve the stone walls and, some of, on our trees, especially the ones that are, at least, 15 inches in circumference, and like 7 or 8 inches.
About 5 inches.
Or 15 divided by 2. Anyway, but in the past, they had marked the trees, and it doesn't always mean that, and one of the things that I've learned that if there's a dead tree, and in fact, on our farm down the road, we did have a dead tree that we wouldn't let them cut because it was filled with raccoons and their babies. So we let them go. Eventually,
They left.
they left and the tree fell into the field. It didn't go to the road. But, those are the kinds of things that you can, there's special circumstances. So, I wanted to share that, and you guys can take this home and read it.
Okay, thanks, Lee.
Because it's important to keep in our town rural, and the other roads are the Boys Camp and Oak Hill Road and Ivy Road, I believe.
So we'll be back, maybe next year to do that particular scenic road hearing. We had hoped, the plan was to do, some of that circuitry this year. But for budgetary concerns and different things that are going on, things have been deferred a bit, but I will be coming through soon to present to you the plans of
Okay.
future cycle maintenance.
And
It's just not tonight.
And I'll ask you to tell the guys, do not chip stuff onto the walls.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you. That's
All right. Any other comments or questions from the public? Public hearing is closed. Board members, what's your pleasure? Any discussion?
Make a motion to accept the, what are we accepting?
22-12.
Cash for the tree trimming or cutting?
Cutting.
Cutting, folks, just call it cutting on Lock Haven Road near pole 22.
2A.
22A.
22A.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Cut away.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
coming in. We'll see you next year. Okay. There are no conceptual. All right. Next, we are going to go through proposed zoning ordinance changes. We are going to hopefully finalize the language. And tonight we will vote whether they advance to the next stage, which is the warned public hearing, which will be held on the 11th of January. Is that right, Rob? Do I have the date right? 11th? Okay. So we'll take them in order. First is the increase to the ADU. Tim has put forth some language, as have I, and that's my proposal. With spelling error, obviously. It is a dwelling unit, not a dueling unit. That's right. Some of Tim's concerns were the 800 square foot maximum that we had imposed when we did our ADU amendment. I think it was in 2017 or 2018. Tim thought that that was an arbitrary number, and he also felt that the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom was also limiting, and thought we should delete all 3 of those references. My recollection is that we put those in just to keep the size down, and somewhere in the back of my head, I remember 800 square feet as being part of a state regulation.
No, state has a minimum.
They're minimum 750, isn't it?
Yeah, they have a minimum.
But you can't go below that.
Can't go below it. That's why we went a little bit above it, as I remember.
And my question is, why bother at all?
Yeah.
I thought the RSA also said that auxiliary dwelling units were not to be more than 800 square feet.
That's what I remember.
No,
It does
No.
not say
I don't think it's
No, it gave a minimum
of 750.
750, but it never gave a max.
We had a case out on Crystal Lake where we were discussing the people who built right on the shore and hung their porch off over the water. And one of the issues was that, and I think you said that's more than 800 square feet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the 800 square foot is what we had as ours, but it's not what the state has.
Oh, that's out, that's.
That's
in
ours.
here.
That's what
That's
we had.
ours. That's
So
what ours is.
disappear with, the planning, with,
We can make it
We can
disappear
make it disappear if we wanted to.
if we want to. Personally, I'd like to keep it.
yeah, I
And
thought you were trying to get rid of it.
No,
No.
no.
Well, I am.
Tim wants to get
He
rid of it.
is,
Yeah.
Right.
singular.
Because when we talked about the 800 feet, as I remember back then, we're saying, if we don't want somebody having a 2,000-foot ADU on a 800-foot house.
Why not?
And they had a
Because
two-story.
because at the time, the principal dwelling had to be larger than the ADU.
Well, I mean, it gets back to what is
What is an
what is the
ADU?
purpose of an ADU?
Right,
It's not to have a second home
Right.
on
Right.
your property, it's to be an accessory to your primary.
right.
So one of them has to be smaller if it's gonna be an accessory.
And, you know, admittedly, 800 is an arbitrary figure. It could be 1,000, but I think it's important that we set an upper limit.
Yeah, I do not. I think we need to leave that up to the creativity of the property owner. If they want to build an ADU that's larger than their primary residence, and then make that their primary residence and call the ADU the house they originally lived in, so be it. That's fine.
All right, Tim,
Possibly
you,
problem that we have.
you've got a guy in an R3 district. He's got a house of 2,500 square feet. He decides to build an ADU of 4,000 square feet.
Which has to be attached.
It doesn't have to be
No, because
attached.
there could be one that's not attached.
Right, if we adopt the unattached portion,
Well, you gotta recognize, unless I misunderstand the RSA. The RSA says an individual property owner has a right to have an attached ADU to their home. So no matter what we do, that right will never go away unless the RSA change.
Oh, I agree.
That's correct.
Are you saying that we are not allowed to put a maximum on it?
No, we are. It can't be any less than 750.
Right.
The RSA says.
Right.
right, if our zoning regs were blank on ADUs, the default is the state regs.
Which has no
Yes.
limit.
Has no upper limit of size.
Right.
Yeah, right. But the state laws allows a town to set an upper limit.
But I will acknowledge that that is a change from what we originally were talking about. So again, it's not a hill I'm gonna stand on and defend, but I think that to the point that we can leave these technical issues up to the property owner and the lot, size that it can accommodate and what the property owner wants to do, as long as he can meet the building codes, the setbacks.
Yeah.
So be it.
And I agree with Tim.
So we take out the 800 square feet.
Yeah. They got.
Or do you want to amend that to a different number?
We can do that as well.
Why don't
I'm
we
honestly-
leave the
I mean, when does it change from being an accessory dwelling unit to a full-blown,
House.
well, house?
Second house.
Second house.
That's a good question. And
That's my,
unless you have a number, you know, anybody can say whatever they want.
right, yeah.
Then
As
I
long
think
as they
they
meet
should
the
be able
building
to
code
say
and the
whatever they
setbacks.
want.
Right.
But if it's, are you gonna limit the number of bedrooms?
No. I
So,
would say
I mean, then it's gonna be the septic that's going to
The
control.
septic is going to be the controlling.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they're on
And if they're
sewer,
on sound sewer, that's not a
You can-
limiter either, but most of the lots that are on sewer are self-limiting.
I gotta tell you, I'm looking at this, I'm not sure. I am not sure how I feel about not limiting it or limiting it. Because I'm trying to think of the downside, right? Let's say you don't put a limit. What's the downside to that? I mean, I love the whole property rights thing, right? Big fan, big fan. But do we really wanna do that? What's the
Right, I mean,
downside?
right.
I can say from practical application, the 800 square foot has basically made it so that it's a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas if you guys did move that up, you're more likely to get a two-bedroom. I'm just saying, it's really hard to do 800 square feet, two-bedroom. They're gonna be absolutely tiny, tiny little bedrooms.
When I was,
Really, really
when I
for
was
that.
drafting my initial recommendation on this, I had toyed with the phrase, the ADU must be smaller than the principal residence.
by 1 foot.
But it
By one square foot.
it doesn't work. You know why? Because of exactly what you said. I'm gonna move into the bigger one and that's the principle in the
Well, they
ADU
wouldn't get approval.
is
though.
1 square foot.
They
Sure
wouldn't
they
get
would.
approval to build the second one. So you'd stop them there if you wanted to. They wouldn't be able to switch.
Yeah, I'm just offering that as
I know.
a compromise.
I know.
Position here in terms of not setting a numerical value to the square footage, just say that it.
So
Just
look,
be small.
look at the extreme. Let's say that they're in R3, right? So they've got 3 acres. They're not gonna have a problem with setbacks. And they've got a 4,500 square foot house. Are you gonna let them build another 4,500 square foot house on that property? Yes.
Why not?
Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah, I am.
More taxes, right?
Yeah, more
Thank you very
taxes.
much.
well, you get more taxes on an individual lot. Because you get,
Right.
because you get taxed by your, by lots. It's the way the taxes
but lots are-
decrease as the lot
Right.
area
But
goes out.
not in comparison to the 4,000 square foot house you just put on it. Cause he
Then-
can't
But if there's
subdivide. it.
room for,
He's R3, he can't subdivide it without going to zoning,
Which won't get approved.
which won't get approved.
So.
Well, I'm assuming that
looking
it's
at two
a 3 acre lot.
4,500 square
I mean, just
foot
because
homes.
he's in the R3 zone, doesn't mean it's a 3 acre lot. Either.
Well,
I have 25 acres and I'm in the zone 5.
right. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
subdivide.
yeah, up in Abbey Road, there's a lot of big lots.
Right.
And that's R5. R3, there's still a lot of large lots.
Mhm.
I mean, the not the Shaker Fields, the Shaker Hill Road Fields, behind, what's the name's house,
Lindsay.
Lindsay,
is just wide open. That's R1,
I know.
which a lot of people don't realize.
that's an all current land use, that land.
Your point is,
Well, it's just assuming that because it's R3, that it's a 3 acre lot.
so it's 5 and you subdivide. no,
Right, yeah,
okay, so-
right, there's
so it's
a lot of lots
he
that are
divides it into 2.
right, but it's just, if he wants a second home, a lot of those lots are big enough to subdivide and get a second lot.
That's what he would want to do if he's wants to sell that home.
Right.
Right,
But if he wanted to build
But he's got a 3 acre lot.
he's
He
got a
wants to
3
put
acre
a
lot,
second
he wants
house.
to
Yeah.
build a house for one of his kids. He could do it.
yeah, so I hear that argument all the time, and it's like, it never seems to be the kid that moves in, so.
We don't care.
We don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, I don't
We don't
care,
care.
it's just, but that argument is made.
It's a density question.
Right, right.
Do you want the
What kind
density?
of dense, right,
He'd have to
exactly.
have the septic, he'd have to
He'd
have
have
the
to have that.
setbacks.
But you want the extra, density comes with, the downside of increased density is the increased traffic on the roads. That's one downside.
Mhm.
And then the long-term effect is Cropper Road now needs to be paved. So, the long term, the 20
I know.
20 years looking out.
Right.
The incremental,
But do we think ADUs is gonna cost that? Cause that?
And getting back to our master plan, which we just adopted, the direction that the master plan, reflects the will of the community is that development should be concentrated in areas served by town sewer and water, i.e. the villages. And by putting more houses in rural areas, the town felt that that would degrade the visual landscape and the rural characteristics. So if we want to follow the master plan, we want to craft our zoning ordinances that will direct development away from the R5s and R3s, except for small accessory apartments or dwelling units.
right, I mean, that's why I like I prefer the 800 feet or something to that effect, or maybe 1,000. Because it can look like a garage, / barn, but it's really an apartment type of thing. The loft is the living space. But it doesn't look like a house that's sitting there on that same lot. It doesn't look like two houses because of size and shape and style on the same lot.
That's nice that you feel that way, that's what you want to see.
Right, well, that's why I'm at the table.
It's not something I think that we should inject ourselves into.
Well, I think we can inject if we want as a group.
You can, and
Right.
I'm arguing that this is not an
None
area
of our
where we
business.
should.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I'm arguing, I don't know.
I mean, like you said, and the master plan is wants density in the core areas of town and try to prevent excessive density in the outliers from all the planning reasons that it comes with, that the extra town expense, the long-term town expense, when you increase density further away from the core areas. The road maintenance, the ambulance services, the fire service, just long-term.
I think that argument would would hold a lot of weight if we were considering a subdivision out in the rural areas. But what we're talking about here is an ADU. So
But it's not
whether
just
you
one,
build
though.
one, whether you build one that's twice the size of the existing home or half the size, it doesn't matter. It's not gonna increase the traffic any by doing that. We're talking about allowing actually two ADUs. One attached, one detached.
Yeah, which I'm not in favor of, but.
Okay, you're not in favor of
Yeah,
that, but,
yeah.
so, but that was the general feeling of the board a few weeks ago. That's the direction we wanted to move in. And all I'm saying is that let's leave this as open as possible to let the property owner decide what is best for them.
I'll let the property owner decide.
I think if they wanna do something that's outside of the parameters of section 422, however it gets written, they always have the option of applying for a variance.
And
I guess my problem with that, David, is we're trying to get away from doing variances.
I know,
And that's why you rewrite zoning, so you don't have more variances.
no, you're
But,
right.
I mean,
Dave.
it's,
Sometimes they have.
see, I feel that the role of the planning board is to look at the town as a whole. What does the town as a whole want? And that's how we write our regulations to reflect that, not what an individual, myself included,
Right.
personally wants, or would like to see or do.
I don't think
And
you can speak for the town. Kurt.
You can based on the
The
master
planning-
plan,
You can.
Based on master plan.
because of all of the survey work and all of the feedback. And it was clear from the survey and every single person we talked to that protection of the outside rural areas was very important. I mean, I heard it 1,000 times.
and if you want the individual, then you do away with zoning and let everybody do what they want.
But does an ADU have an effect on that? I guess that's where I come down.
So the question is, would the town prefer a small garage barn type of unit that doesn't look like a rental, but it is? Or would the town as a whole mind, at the extreme end of the spectrum, another 4,500 square foot home next to a 4,500 square foot home on the same lot?
Or trailers.
Right, that's the other thing too. I mean, we're visualizing, at least in my mind, a house with a peak roof
Yes.
and dormers. But that doesn't mean that's gets placed there.
Could be a couple mobile homes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Talked about that last 30.
Yeah, if it meets the requirements.
Yeah.
That's what gets put there.
So we've talked about this extreme doubling in size of a home.
Right.
Now, the likelihood that actually happened is probably one of the next 200 ADUs that gets built.
I agree.
So I think we're pressing for restrictions for something that's probably not going to happen. And if it does, okay, big deal.
I wonder if this board is at the point now to make a decision on this, or do we bump this till next year and keep it off the warrant? I don't think that we've talked it through enough.
And I'd like to also say something. I've said it
Go ahead.
before. I'm a little concerned about how quickly we're doubling ADUs, we're doubling density, and you're considering taking away the 800-foot maximum for an ADU, and you don't know what you don't know yet.
You don't know what you're gonna get.
Well, that was my argument early on, was wait until we start rewriting the zoning regs with a professional who can maybe know some of the answers to the unknowns.
I agree with you, and I lean that way, but at the same time, you look at the master plan and the housing chapter, and people are desperate for housing. And if we doubled it, the density and the ADU, I think you'd see a significant change in the town in terms of the development of these ADUs and help solve the housing problem. I think you get people that are working Hanover, settling in Enfield because there's more inventory available. Whether that's good or not, I don't know.
I mean,
You're not
But it's-
solving it for Enfield, you're solving it for the people who work in Hanover who are looking for a place.
Right, but in the back of my mind, we're the only town in the Upper Valley that is losing population the last 3 census in a row.
I
We-
don't agree with.
It's a fact. It's a fact. The census don't lie. The census don't lie.
Look for the whole, look at the whole state. They're all like that.
That's not accurate. It's
Yes.
just not accurate.
But I mean, I mean,
We'll argue
we-
that later, Celie.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, we can regulate the density location also. I mean, you don't
Yes.
have to say all zones.
This one's kind of funny for me because this was gonna be the simplest one. We're just going from 1 to 2. And yet it opened up so many cans of worms that I'm somewhat agreeing that we may have to take it down.
I would remind you too, I mean, if you guys make this change and the town adopts it, and a year from now, you think this is a huge mess, it's a living document. You guys can make another change next year. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not,
that's
It's
a
not
little-
gonna take, the problem.
what I don't like is your
No,
attitude,
no.
we've gotta wait, we've gotta take this
Well,
cautious.
I guess
No,
my
it's
only,
just-
my only thing with this is,
Yep.
if we adopt this, we're not gonna know for 5 years what the effect is,
Mhm.
and probably 10 years what the effect is.
Couldn't you just double the ADUs and kind of leave and not
Everything else
change
the
the
same.
800? And,
Ken?
and
Well, I did offer a compromise, which was to say that the ADU has to be smaller than the principal dwelling unit.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
there's a
just-
lot of wiggle room in that.
Yeah,
Can can the public say something?
Of
Yeah,
course.
I think I agree with what David said completely. This is, you just adopted the master plan. And I think you should follow those guidelines and
Well, I
not
really
have the
think we are.
density out.
We are, that's the problem. We're following the guidelines
Actually,
and some of us don't like what it means that we are following the
it's actually
guidelines.
multiple, it's
It doesn't
multiple
sound like
directions of the plan.
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't hear the
You bet.
last part of what you said.
I think this guideline, this follows the guidelines of the new master plan.
The
I
800
don't
square
think
feet.
it does to be able to put in a bigger house than what's already there. That, I think people are gonna notice that. And this isn't following the plan.
So you're not saying you think they should double ADUs and double lot size and get rid of the 800 square feet maximum?
No, I
No.
don't think you should get rid
Okay.
of that.
All right. I'm sorry, I just
Yeah.
didn't,
I'm sorry. I
yeah,
didn't
I
mean to-
just didn't hear the last part.
Okay.
You're basically saying we just go from 1 to 2
I
and leave
mean,
everything
it's
else
an
the same.
accessory dwelling.
Right,
It's not you're not putting up
right.
a new house the same size or bigger. It's titled an accessory dwelling.
Right.
That's the law.
800 square foot. For the garage. It's 800 square feet.
Okay, people, what do we want to do? I've heard several proposals.
I'd like to double the ADUs, leave the 800 square foot maximum and defer the doubling lot size for another time.
You mean having the lot size?
Oh, she's
Doubling
jumping
the
to next one.
density.
Oh,
Well, yeah, that's the next
that's a
conversation.
different,
Well, it was,
That's
Right.
This one is.
right, is it,
the
is
second
number
ADU.
4, the last paragraph or section of what you're showing? You have.
Yeah.
this is,
So,
And why do we have this phrase in there, must remain under one ownership?
That's on no condos.
So,
condos are a whole nother chapter in the RSA's.
yeah,
They follow in a whole other section. And
Yeah.
then,
so they're well addressed. Why do?
and the state says that you cannot condominiumize an ADU and spin it off. That's state law.
Well, then we don't need that.
It's,
Take words out.
We could take that out.
Simplest thing.
we could take that out.
so we're. Well, I mean, it's not just condos, it's, you run into issues with resale also.
Yeah, but
When-
Kurt, no one's gonna sell. There's all kinds of reasons why you cannot break off a permanent dwelling on a lot, two permanent dwellings on a lot, you can't break one of those off and sell it without selling the land under it. And you can't do that unless you go through the city regulations.
No.
Well,
Someone,
the state prohibits, that would be like a condominium and the state prohibits that.
no, someone owns the land and the house on it, and then they sell just the building.
So what?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, look at all those, buildings on Main Street where the state owned the land. And people own the buildings. And I'm thinking of the land where, Kelleher is gonna build his apartments, which was state-owned railroad land. I'm thinking of HomeQuest's, furniture shop. And
The ambulance building.
the ambulance building.
Current mortgage regulation, requirements, insurance, or, I mean, there's
They're not gonna
dozens
let
of
you.
things that say that will never be created again in this town. Those kind of situations just aren't gonna happen. And if they do, then woe be to the property owner who agreed to do that because he just created a huge mess for himself.
Right. Because you can't get a mortgage if you don't own the land.
So what do we want to do? We've eliminated and must remain under one ownership.
I would leave it. It just covers ourselves. If it's,
You don't.
even if it's mute, it still covers ourselves from potential issues.
That's why I put it in, but if people
We're
want
not,
to take it out.
we don't
that's
need
okay.
to cover ourselves on this issue.
Ourselves could be the town.
Well, that's what I mean, the town. And
Does the state law
Just-
cover us on that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, you know,
Does it hurt us having it there, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah.
it doesn't hurt and it, you know, it puts people on notice of things that they might have to do or cannot do. Just like paragraph 3, which the state says you have to have a design for a septic system.
Well, if the state says it, why do we have to say it?
I think it's a courtesy to people who are looking at our zoning regs to give them an outline of what is possible and what is not possible. So that somebody who's looking at a property in town who comes from east wherever, that's 2,500 miles away, and knows nothing about how.
Well, he's gonna have to get a building permit, you, David, and that's gonna be one of the first things that'll be noted right off the bat, is an issue like that. Just septic system designers know that, they're gonna have a septic tank for each building.
Assuming that you have a detached unit.
Or the septic's gonna have to be built to size for the added number of bedrooms. I mean, it just is a matter of fact.
It's gonna have to be designed, not built. That's all DES requires is a design. And you don't have to build it unless the original system fails or it was never approved by the state if it's that old.
So it's only the design, that's sort of pointless.
I know.
I
That's
agree.
the law.
I agree.
Yeah.
But that's what,
Wait a minute. So I wanna build an attached or a detached, doesn't matter. I wanna build 2 ADUs on my property. I have a septic system designed for a 3-bedroom house, which is currently what's there.
mhm.
So you're saying that if I go to Rob for a building permit or the building inspector for a building permit, he's not going to ask the question about, is your septic system capable of handling these new units?
No, he's gonna say, where's your
Design.
new septic design that's been approved by DES?
And is he not then going to see that it's built?
I don't write the state rules.
He's
I,
correct.
I
He's
agree,
correct.
I
You have to
agree,
have-
I
you have to-
agree, it's ridiculous.
But you have,
Basically
that's
have
all
to
you have
have
to
it
have
in
is
the
the
bank.
design. Yeah.
Well, the state wants to be sure that the property can hold the septic system.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And
Right,
if
exactly.
it
Right,
that there's a plan in place to immediately,
right, right. There's room to
Yeah.
build a new system.
Okay.
Transfer your ADU over.
If we add the ADUs and it doesn't fail, then everyone's happy.
Right.
If you have your ADU and it doesn't fail and everyone's happy, then
Yeah.
you continue until somebody's not happy.
So all you're saying is they gotta require approval, not that they have to build it here.
Right,
Right.
That's what the
that's
state.
that's what the state's saying.
So why do we, it just doesn't make sense to have this extra sentence.
yeah, no, it does, because young couple coming wanting to do
Right, right, you-
something, they're not even gonna think what questions they need to ask. This puts it all on a list.
To do that.
Right.
And they may buy a house, not thinking that they're gonna put in an ADU, and they live there for 2 years. And, the mother-in-law gets sick and needs more care, and the couple says, Mom, why don't you come live with us? We can give you your own apartment, above the garage, we'll finish it off nicely for you. And the couple goes to the building inspector and says, this is what we want to do. Can we have a permit? And the building inspector says, well, I need you to have a septic system design. And they say, okay. They go out and they hire a septic system designer for what, $2,500? I don't know the exact number, but that's a guess. And the septic system designer says, nope, you've got ledge, you've got a 3-bedroom house, and the topography, the geography of the land is such that you cannot put in an ADU. Could happen, right?
Could happen, sure, but that doesn't address that.
It addresses it in the sense that somebody buying a property or building on a piece of land might not be thinking that far ahead
But
in
in
their life.
order to fully evaluate whether or not I can do an ADU, I've got to read RSA 674, it says right there. If I want to fully know the requirements for ADU, I've got to read 674. Unless we're gonna just completely rewrite 674 in the zoning ordinance, I don't see why we need to pull out pieces of it and reprint here.
I don't know. I think,
I think it's a courtesy to the people coming.
Well, if you wanted a guideline to ADUs, there's a couple, I think I may have sent them to you.
Yeah, you did.
yeah,
Which I was really hoping that we would get this ADU thing through this year, and that we could actually take that as a guide, that we could incorporate some of our own local requirements and recommendations. And I get this thing. Look, folks, do you know that you can do an ADU in your home? Again, to try to kick off a little bit of interest in folks thinking about doing them. So you could put all kinds of information in a guide like that. Here's the checklist, you know, just don't see the need for it in the ordinance. But I'll see the floor and let's move on.
Is there a
Okay.
motion to, adopt section 422 as written up here? I'll move that. I'll make that motion. We adopt section 442 as written.
I would second that.
okay, motion made and seconded. Do we have people take a moment to give it a final read through?
Yeah, okay. And I'm looking at it for one purpose, and that is that we gotta keep in mind, as I said before, 674 says that people have a right to have an attached ADU to their property, their principal residence.
Right.
So we say here, not more than two may be created, in which, okay, they may be, internal, attached, or detached. So if I built two detached units one year, and then the next year said, RSA 674 says I have a right to have an attached unit, could I do that?
No,
You only have two total.
because you already have two.
The third one, you gotta get
You,
Well, I mean,
you gotta
you
become,
You can build a detached first. If this passes, detached first, and then the state says, I can have my attached one, and that's my two.
That's your two.
Right.
You
Yep.
can't build two detached, right?
No.
No. Well, actually, this says, yeah, the way that's worded, you can.
okay,
Not more than two accessory dwellings, period,
can you,
may be created.
can you suggest a language change so that only one of them is detached?
No more than you can have, well, other than just say one, only one detached, what, only one detached?
Not more than two accessory dwellings
Maybe
with
created.
a maximum of one being detached.
Which means you could have two attached. You
Yeah.
could have one attached, one detached.
Yeah.
And those are your options.
That's your two.
But if you do two attached, then you get into the three-family
But that's up to
issue.
the property.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right, but
it
then
is.
become, then other rules for a three-family
That's right.
dwelling
Right.
unit come into play.
We're missing a W
A
there.
W on ADU will.
Ill.
Ill, that's about right.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
okay,
Will you accept that amendment to your?
I'll accept the change, the add additional wording. Second.
can I suggest rather than will be, say is allowed?
I'll accept that, you second that.
Yes, I'll second that.
Sure.
Shall be allowed, shall be allowed,
Is.
is allowed, okay. That's one English, what do you say?
Okay, anything else
Looks good to me.
before we vote on the motion?
I think we'll be okay with this, this language.
Okay,
Does it say which zones? Is this all zones?
It's all zones.
it's, no, it is
No.
not all zones, it is all zones. Well, okay, the state requirement is all zones in which a single-family home is allowed by right.
Okay, so by,
So in Enfield, that is R1, R2,
that's
I'm
right,
sorry, R1, R3, R5,
CB.
CB,
In the
and,
Route 4 district.
and arguably Route 4.
Conservation
Because
too.
It's 600 feet back.
it doesn't, I couldn't find anything that specified single-family home. All I could find was residential.
Well, that's
Residential.
residential. Single family home is a residential.
I agree. That's why I
Right.
said, the Route 4 is
So the only one that's not allowed would be the CI.
CI.
Yeah.
And I wrote this down at one point.
That's all subject to change once we read the zoning. right?
Yeah. So should we keep it as as all districts in which single-family homes are allowed?
Yep.
Which is the state's requirement?
Yep.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, abstentions? The ayes have it. Let's move on to the next one, which is lot density. Lots that have, what?
We voted on lot density, we just.
We did, but we gotta look at the wording. Rob, can you put that wording up?
Did you send that one to me?
What?
Did you send that one to me?
No, I did not.
Give your own language for that?
I do not.
Well, we
We,
ended the last meeting.
We approved the.
We approved the.
wording.
did we approve the wording?
Yeah.
Okay,
Done. I think that's done.
then done.
And also the principal building.
And also.
We also the principal building, okay.
Conservation Commission.
Hang on, just a sec, just a sec, folks. Part of the ADU proposal was to strike the definition in the definition section.
No. No, well, if we wanted to do that, we should have done that. Just talked about ADUs.
Well, as I forgot,
You forgot.
and I'm asking
But I
people,
don't, actually, I don't think it doesn't contradict what we just voted.
it doesn't.
We strike, we can leave that, because we struck that in a different place,
Yeah, that's in the definitions.
In the
the
definition,
definitions.
yeah. That's part of the original proposal was to strike it from the
Right.
definition. We did not vote on that in our present discussion. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so we need a motion to strike R1
No,
language,
no,
paragraph
no.
U.
Whoa.
No.
The definition that currently resides in the ordinance in the definition section is not contrary to what we just voted on for ADUs.
Right.
I agree.
So we don't need to do anything.
Right, we can leave it there.
We,
If we had changed that, we would have to do something with the definition.
okay. I'm just trying to make sure all
Yeah.
the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. So,
Well, before you go to,
conservation.
yeah, the primary building, what was sent out the most recent from Rob on, which I don't have a copy of, so I printed off. The language there was different than I thought we voted on. What was being struck out and left. I just want to clarify that we're leaving principal dwelling and only striking
Right.
Principal building.
Right,
Residents.
We struck through one dwelling. So it says no lot shall have more than one principal.
Okay,
building.
Right.
Okay, in the minutes will.
Minutes.
yeah,
Should be,
Over that.
yeah, not the agenda thing.
okay. So we're on to Conservation Commission, 100-foot setback for the prime wetlands. I did some research to try to understand exactly what had happened. And I've had some additional information since I did the research. So the Enfield prime wetlands were not created in 1987. They were created in 1992. And at that time, they were subject to a 100-foot setback rule. Yes, by state.
Not at the time of adoption. You have that paperwork, there's something else. When Enfield, there was some document that I found from DES that explains.
Does it have any bearing on?
Well,
The end result.
well, other than the 100-foot setback from the state was added to the RSA's after 1992 and then eliminated a few, that's the document there I was looking for. A few years prior. So by default, Enfield only has a 50-foot setback from any wetland in town.
Cause that's what our ordinance.
Right, because our ordinance says 50 foot.
Right, but when the wetlands were mapped, they were mapped with 100-foot
No,
setback.
No, I was mistaken. At the time, the previous meeting when I was talking, they only mapped, they only delineated the actual wetlands.
But that would make sense because the
Right.
100-foot setback would be determined up on the property.
On the property, yeah, right, right. They only mapped the physical wetlands, same as someone building today. They have to go out, find the edge of the wetland, and then measure the 50 foot
Mhm.
from that.
So we still need the 100-foot one then.
If you
wanna do
want,
it
right, if you
100
want to have the extra
Right.
footage for the
Yep.
prime wetlands.
feet. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we have wording?
Yes, where's that document I sent you guys?
Right.
This is the one that, David sent us. Right?
Is it the one with yellow on it?
I just closed it?
No, it's not the one with yellow on it. It is,
Because it was there at 100 before.
it's one that you,
Yeah, I guess I don't have that here. I gotta go grab it.
you're gonna grab it?
Yep.
All right,
What's that?
let's take a 5-minute recess.
I don't understand what you're saying, Kurt.
In 1992, Enfield adopted prime wetlands,
Yeah,
5 designated prime wetlands.
right.
At that time, the state RSA had no buffer zone. Few years later, 90 whatever,
Yeah,
the state adopted all prime wetlands shall have a 100-foot buffer. And it was a state mandated requirement.
right.
Another 5 years go by, the state changed the law again. And they eliminated, and they wrote the new law as 100-foot buffer will only be on prime wetlands that were adopted when the 100-foot buffer was was required. Because Enfield was adopted prior to the requirements. It didn't carry.
We never re-adopted after
Right,
92
right,
at 100
Right, the
feet.
state,
So
so
it
it
went
is-
back to our wetlands, which is 50 feet.
yeah,
So
we
we
need-
wanna take it to 100 feet, we need a whole new motion.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
We just need to
Okay.
change the 50 to, we just need a new one that says, with the exception of prime wetlands, which are 100 square
Yeah.
feet, 100
Yeah.
feet.
yeah.
So a normal wetland 50, prime 100.
100.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, yeah. Prime wetlands that were adopted at town meeting of 1993.
Right.
Okay. Find it.
Yeah, hold on one second. So. This is the document. I sent you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's the one that's on.
here it is.
Make it bigger, please.
That's the short one.
Okay, so that's what's being proposed.
Yeah.
Shall the setback for those wetlands designated as prime wetlands be increased from 50 feet to 100 feet? And that's the truncated version, Rob.
Correct.
But
I think we're okay with that. I mean, we don't have to go and actually do each paragraph from each
no,
zoning district.
no. But what I wanted to do. Oh, there it is. Okay. So what we're doing, or what we're proposing to do, is add the part that's highlighted in yellow.
Looks good.
And Dr. Face, has the Conservation Commission, generally in agreement with that language?
the language that you sent me, that I asked the Conservation Commission to vote on, is not anywhere near what you got up there. You sent me a proposal with an explanation, with a question, and with a statement about development. Now, I don't see anything like that up there.
That version unfortunately got truncated when it got sent to Rob and somehow it disappeared from my computer.
Well, I'm afraid I don't want to have that truncated because that's the problem we've had before.
Can you read to the group what I originally sent you,
Yes, I will.
please?
And it's in these yellow pages right here.
Is it?
Yes.
Where'd you get
It's
that?
just like split.
Does it have explanation with a colon and then a statement about that? I can't see that far. All you need to tell me is, pardon?
I was gonna hand it to you.
Where did you get, was that sent out?
Yes,
Yes.
so there were three separate emails that Rob sent out with various information,
This one is like split on two
Right.
pages.
2 pages.
Yeah.
So the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3. You want to see it? I can hand it to you.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the email that.
It starts here. And then goes to the top.
Well, that's what was.
Yeah, that's what he's got up there.
That's not what we're talking.
That's not what we're.
Well, let me read this because this is not the same thing. Ballot question, shall the setback for those wetlands designated as prime wetlands be increased from 50 feet to 100 feet? That's what the Conservation Commission originally asked for 150.
Right.
They are willing to accept 100. Now, the explanation, and I'm not sure whether this goes on the ballot, but this is something that the public needs to
It
understand.
does
in
not
order to
go on
vote.
the ballot, but it goes as a narrative.
So then the
explanation.
next thing is a yes vote will add and this is what I got from Mr. Frack. A yes vote will add the following italicized index to the surface water building setback paragraph in all zoning districts. No structure shall be placed, located, or constructed within 50 feet from the seasonal high water line of any river, stream, lake, public pond, or wetland, except, and this is in italics, and that's what was promised to be in the ordinance when it was finally put up for adoption, except for designated prime wetlands, where the setback for any structure shall be 100 feet. No dock may be located nearer than 25 feet from a side lot line. Dry hydrants, culverts, and bridges may be permitted by planning board and with the state permits as required. Now, that's
Okay.
what the
so-
Conservation Commission voted to
Okay,
accept.
so we need to add structure.
Yep.
Rob, can you go back to that highlighted section there? And, where the setback for, is it any structure or all structures?
This is what I want.
Oh, it should just be the same verbiage as what's for the 50, but you should just use the verbiage that's there for the 50, copy it down to prime wetlands
Change it to 1.
and change it to 100.
Says no structure shall be placed, located, or constructed within 50 feet of the seasonal high water line of any river stream except for designated prime wetlands where the setback shall be 100 feet.
Right,
Okay, that's what
right,
it
you
said.
take that same language, except for the 50 feet, and insert it where the highlighted yellow is.
I don't see what you guys are trying to do.
You gotta
add structure.
Yeah.
The structure's already in the sentence. No structure.
Oh, no structure.
Shall be placed, located, or constructed within 50
50
feet
feet, yeah,
from the seasonal high water line
right,
of any river, stream, lake, public pond, or wetland,
okay.
comma, except for designated prime wetlands where the setback shall be 100 feet.
Yeah,
Okay, let's see what you guys are trying to do.
That works for me.
That's fine. As long as that's what you're gonna put in,
Yeah.
if it's voted on by the public, or you're going to submit it as a warrant article from the planning board.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
With,
Then the
with
conservation-
the advice and consent of the Conservation Commission, I think, right?
Right.
Well, okay, I'll have to get another vote then for them to say they want to advise and consent, or if you'll accept my, comment, we have two other members here from the
Well, I
Conservation
mean, that would be
Commission.
in the explanation portion. It's not gonna be
Yeah,
in the.
it's not in the warrant article itself, it's in the explanation board. I agree.
It's just so the public knows that everybody.
You do have.
But if they read,
If
if the
next month, they could do that.
if the explanation is not gonna be on the ballot, how the
No,
people.
it'll be in the town report.
There's an explanation for each warrant article that is separate from the ballot, because the ballot is the thing that you check off, yes or no,
Right.
and you feed it into the machine, and that has a limited amount of
Right.
space.
I know
It
that.
also has
And one
legal-
thing is
legal
you can't say,
implications.
you can't put if voted, if vote yes. You
Right.
can't put what you have in the explanation on the ballot because
That's
you
true,
can't
too.
say,
You're right.
because if you say if vote yes, then you also have to put if you vote no.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
reading what Mr. Frack originally
Right.
sent me, and that was
Yeah.
an explanation to me that if
Right.
it was passed, then
Right.
that italicized section would be in the ordinance.
It'll be in.
That will be in the ordinance.
It'll be in the ordinance, it'll be in the narration on the ballot on the town report.
Do you, two people agree then with that? Okay,
Okay, so we're
then
good?
the Conservation
That's gonna be
Commission
important.
will
That is the
agree for that,
Okay.
and will be willing to state that they recommend it.
Okay, can you please send me back the document that I sent you?
Send it back to you. I'll send you a copy, but I'm going to keep the original. you
No,
sent.
send my email back to me. That has,
You lost it.
because I lost it. Did
Oh.
did I send that to you as an attachment?
You did, and I answered you with the attachment, all already on there. I will look and see if I,
Maybe I still have it. Yeah.
Copy me too.
Technologies are beautiful.
I can take it.
Go to the cloud, you'll find it.
Search.
Can hire some hackers.
Some other time though.
yeah, I'll just look it up. You don't need to worry, waste time
If
now.
I can't find it, I will reach out to you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, where are we?
Local historic district.
Oh, wait a minute. Have you voted to accept this thing by the planning
Oh,
board?
yeah, we got a vote.
Got to vote.
They got a vote.
We got a vote.
We got a vote, and then
All right,
it
who's,
moves on to.
who is going to make a motion?
I have a comment that I want to make.
Make a motion.
We'll do that. Well, they could do it afterwards, but I don't want you to vote until they make a comment.
Make your comment now.
And this is really to the Conservation Commission. A number of people are probably going to see this as land taking. And I just want you to be prepared for that. Because the planning board is doing this as a, reacted upon your request to put it in on the zoning ordinance. Now, someone's gonna have to advocate for this. So if you're gonna write, someone's gonna make flyers, if someone's gonna hand out items, if someone's gonna stand up at town meeting and
Absolutely, we have,
defend it.
Out front.
Yes,
we
we
have
plan
a
to do
speaker,
that.
we have a
These are
big
you
insert.
And I have a map here that shows why the public should be interested in this.
Well, don't make your argument here.
I'm not making my argument here. I'm just showing you what we're going to show the public.
Yep.
Those red marks are the aquifers in Enfield. And every single one of them is drained by a prime wetland. So prime wetlands are an essential part of maintaining pure water in the aquifers that every person's well comes from, whether they're municipal system or whether they're private wells.
Okay, I think the point.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna have an educational session. Did you
That's
mention
right.
that?
February 16th is one.
Okay, so I think your question, I think he's going to address your question. The Conservation Commission is,
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is, I don't see the planning board taking an active role in all of that.
no,
They're all set to do it.
they're all set.
We're all set. We have faith.
They're ready to go. It's their
Ready to
baby.
go.
Let me mention to you for your edification, I sent Mr. Frack a listing of all the properties who have any of these prime wetlands on their borders. Did you share that with the rest of this planning board?
I have not.
So there are very few properties that actually have any of that prime wetland on their property from which 100-foot setback would be in any way, shape, or form detrimental to their use of the property. And anybody who looks at that list will realize
Right.
that.
But what we're saying, Dr. Thies, is you don't have to sell us. You've got to sell the voters.
Well, we're planning to do as much as we can. We realize.
Because by us putting it on the ballot, you've sold us if we put it on the ballot.
And by you recommending it or putting it on the
Right.
ballot, you've also convinced the rest of the population, if I'm correct in the way all of these other ordinances have been changed, that is something they should vote for.
Yeah, right, yeah, well, agreed.
So.
I guess my only response to that, Dr. Thies, is we voted 7-0 against one of yours a couple of years ago and it still passed, so.
That's encouraging, in fact.
Okay.
1,000 brains may be better than 25 or whatever.
So we'll say that it's recommended by the
Illegal.
planning board and the conservation.
And we only
In the
voted against it because it
explanation,
was
it will
illegal.
say that, absolutely.
And if you, and everybody is invited, it's gonna be held at the Shaker Museum. To send service, somebody from DES coming to speak on the importance and the functions of the wetlands. So
You put that on the listserv, that meeting and time?
It's on the town newsletter that's
Okay.
coming out in January. I
Perfect.
sent,
I put it on the listserv too.
I don't know how to get on the list, sir. I've never gotten anything.
any rate,
Okay.
it's on the
Okay.
newsletter from the town.
I make a motion, we accept the wording for the prime wetlands.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Oh, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I
All right.
appreciate that.
Thank you for staying with us.
That's our job, isn't it?
Do we have an abstain?
One abstention.
Abstain?
Tim.
Oh, Tim, okay.
Thank you.
Whitney,
Thank you.
did you
You
get
guys
the
do
vote?
a lot of hard
Okay.
work here.
Sure did.
All right,
We're just,
Get paid well.
the other thing is we're gonna have to vote again. We all know that, right?
right,
Okay,
right.
at the public hearing. This is not the public hearing.
This is to advance it to the
This
public
is the
hearing.
answer to the public hearing. Yeah, then he votes yes.
Okay.
Whitney, he
Next
changed
is,
his vote to a yes. From an abstain to a
Oh,
yes.
so unanimous now, okay.
and Whitney, all of this is just to advance, to affirm or confirm the language and advance it to the public hearing.
Okay,
Okay, just so you know.
so this is not the one where we'll say like the planning board recommends.
No.
this. That's.
That
that's-
comes
That's-
after the
That comes
public
after the
hearing.
public
Okay, 2
hearing.
weeks. Gotcha. I do
That
not
comes
need
in
to wait.
January. Floodplain updates. I don't think there's any discussion possible
State.
I move we.
because the state.
I second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Lastly, local historic district, Heritage Commission.
Miss Jones, that's her.
Do you have anything to add from your presentation of 2 weeks ago?
I do not. I have not been able to get a group together over Christmas.
Okay. So the proposed language or the proposed amendment proposed by the Historic Commission, Heritage Commission is on the screen. And it says to see if the town will vote to approve the formation of a local historic district in Enfield Center to be called the Enfield Center Historic District Overlay. This district consists of the Enfield Center Townhouse, built 1843, the Shaker Enfield Center Schoolhouse Museum, built 1851, and the Union Church of Enfield Center, built 1836. These buildings are currently designated as tax exempt. There will be no impact on the tax rate. Anything to add, Linda? Last,
I know that you weren't comfortable, if you weren't comfortable with no strict regulations.
But they all fall under the zoning regulation.
Right,
That overlay is just an overlay, and
right.
everything falls within the zoning regulations, so they're all being.
If it comes up in the future, we can propose something in the future. I just don't. I know that the state doesn't require it and that other towns have the overlays which accept the town zoning. And
Why is this important? Why do we need this designation?
in looking for grants, it's a designation that makes it a little easier to get grant money. The town has already said, these are historic buildings. And like having it on the state register of historic places and the National Register of Historic Places, which two of the buildings are.
Mhm.
The schoolhouse qualifies, but isn't.
Okay, so the primary reason is to help with grants.
Right. And the reason we want grant money is to.
I can understand why you need grant money. Yeah.
It's just.
Land,
Yeah.
land and acquisition.
Parking, bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera.
It's just a check mark that you need in order to apply for a grant to help maintain these buildings.
When you have no check marks, it's likely the grants money will go elsewhere.
Right.
The more check marks you have that indicate that you're serious and will spend the grant money wisely, then the more likely you are to be accepted.
Would you be more likely to be accepted if the zoning overlay had specific criteria?
If I were applying, the Heritage Commission or town were applying for certified local government, yes.
I thought CLG was off the table because,
It is,
because it's not.
but you asked me the question.
No, I asked if you were applying for a grant, any grant, not CLG. If having specific criteria for the district would help your grant application being accepted. Because what I'm hearing you say is the establishment of a zoning district will help you potentially obtain grant money. And I'm asking you to go one step further, and I'm asking, would a granting organization look more favorably if your overlay district were fleshed out with some actual standards?
Well, it's a two-part answer, and I don't think that it would be as a detriment for any state grants other than certified like a local government, which is federal money administered by the state, and they would require it. In our case.
Isn't CLG no longer funded in New Hampshire?
It has been defunded to the point the legislature has defunded it so that they have to use all of the federal monies to keep the office open.
So basically, CLG as a goal is off the table at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think it's worth the effort and the reporting. Because I thought in the workshops I went to, I saw projects that towns had done, and their towns had not defunded them. It had not defunded. The town still had access to those monies.
Yeah.
And some of the projects were quite impressive. And I thought that would be a great thing until I got a little deeper and found that it wasn't going to be a benefit to us and there isn't enough money. So I don't think that not having stricter standards would handicap us with the other areas, any that I found so far. I would like to see stricter standards, and I expect there'd be a lot of resistance to that.
Who would the resistance come from
Yeah,
in this particular instance?
I think that if I said, I think that there should be some design standards for Main Street or Enfield.
No. We're just talking about the Enfield Center Historic
Oh,
Triangle District.
right,
No.
these three buildings, it's like,
the people who are responsible for all three buildings are all in support. They're,
Then they would not object to coming up with some standards.
I'm not sure that relates to this. I don't think so either. Well, all they're looking for is the designation. If they want to come up with standards, it's not going to be a part of this.
Well, my point is that if you're gonna create an overlay district, it should have standards.
It just does. It's got the zoning regulations.
then you don't need the
Then you
overlay.
don't need the overlay.
They need the overlay. to
They need
qualify
designation for the grant.
Then that shouldn't be a zoning issue.
Yeah, see, that's what was my argument earlier, was that if you're gonna use an historic district to apply for grants, then, and you say, well, we just have zoning, we have zoning, and they say, well, okay, so what's protecting these buildings?
Would you have a problem with the designation first and step two would be stricter regulations later on?
I think it should be a package.
Like, can't be,
I
because
agree with Kurt.
you can't have 15 pages on a ballot.
No, but you can have reference to the regulations.
If you're gonna have a local historic district, there is a method and means to get it on a ballot. I mean, that's
So that's
fairly
it.
common.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be a lot more detailed than what this is saying.
Right, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm looking at the New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources, and there's a whole page, and then I sent it to Rob, I think you forwarded it. Locally designated historic districts, usually an overlay created by the municipal level, administered by a locally appointed citizen commission to preserve, protect our building structures, public benefit, using regulations and guidelines developed by the community. Historic district commissions review proposals for exterior alterations, new construction, demolition, or on properties within the district. Property owners' plans must meet with the approval of the Historic District Commission before construction can begin. So it would, and then there's other references to regulations and restrictions within the overlay districts.
And what I'm saying, was that all on the ballot? No.
No, because they're not proposing. They don't want the guidelines.
They don't say they don't want guidelines. They want to get this approved first.
Right.
Well, I just think it's premature, and not only that, but Kurt, just slightly down on that thing you just read, they talk about a neighborhood historic district, which to me seemed actually more appropriate for what you were
Well,
looking to do.
we absolutely think Enfield Center should have a neighborhood historic district.
Well, that,
It's just that there are a lot of moving parts here, and we're trying to get number one started so we can start looking for grants.
I really think that the Heritage Commission take a step back, thoroughly flesh out what it is you want to do there in terms of an overlay district. And not only that, but I think we need the benefit of the sections of the master plan that have yet to be written yet to deal with this very topic. Because while the Heritage Commission can say that we want this, are we sure the town wants this?
Wait a minute, you said Conservation Commission?
No, Heritage Commission.
Heritage.
Well, will we find out if it's on the ballot?
To answer your question, I would say, from what we heard on the master planning task force, that yes, they that the town, the general populace definitely wants to, conserve, different properties in town. And it's in the plan.
It's in the vision part.
It's in the vision part, and we speak about it in some of the other parts as well. With detail, no.
Well, I think they need the detail.
I mean, my other concern is if this is adopted, then it goes back to the Heritage Commission and they start to write guidelines for these structures. And nobody can say no.
No, no,
Yes, yes.
absolutely, that's
The owners
incorrect.
can.
I'd have to come here to the planning
No.
board, and it's your decision.
No, it falls to the state law, when I'm reading, appears that it falls to the commission to write the guidelines.
Well,
That
we can
doesn't
write
mean-
them, but that
might
doesn't
write it,
mean they
but
get
not
accepted.
approve
They
it.
go through the regular planning process.
Right.
Because otherwise, we
Written by
would have written ourselves a
administered
yes
by the
check.
locally
and
appointed
walked
citizen
away.
commission.
Does it say administer? And
Here
I
again, it
want to
says
point
administered
out
by
to
the-
you, Tim, that you're not correct, that we don't know what we want to do with it. We know exactly what we want to do with grant monies. We've thought it out. We've looked at other areas. We've had no support from the town. And it's frustrating. So we're learning grants 101.
Let me ask a question. The people that object to, approving this, explain to me, what is the downside by approving this designation? Is it that we would not have input to the overlay new restrictions? Is that the issue?
I
What is
don't
the issue?
believe that that's even possible.
Well, what is the
I
issue
don't
of
either.
approving this designation?
Right, I think what would happen, I really hate to use that, I think what would happen, because which just really points to the fact that we don't have this thing thoroughly researched and fleshed out.
Well, we have.
It's like, well, but you haven't communicated that to us, I think, in a thorough fashion. So how do you set up these restrictions that Dave is suggesting? If it's not part of the article on the warrant that establishes the commission, then how is it done?
Good question.
I had the assumption that it was done as part of the warrant article.
I
That's
believe we
where it
have,
should be.
I
So
believe
that means
that
that
we
we'll have
have,
to come back to this issue again in a year's time and put whatever restrictions you guys decide you want to advance.
So is it true that any restrictions that they write would have to get approved by this board,
That's not,
They would have to be approved by the voters.
by the voters?
it would have to go to town meeting.
So it would have to go to town meeting for
Yes.
approval, so
Right.
they
We
can't,
know that.
they can't create their
Right.
own, blah, blah, blah. So let's say it takes them a year to do that.
That's why they
In a
never
year,
work on the Main Street.
They're gonna be able to apply for grants to get the money to maintain these buildings. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with
What's
that?
wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, they never went on the Main Street Historic District. They never came in with restrictions.
There aren't any.
That's what I just said.
So, you mean,
That's a different kind of historic district, I believe. Linda, isn't a local historic district what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Different from the,
His. I
I don't know
don't
that-
have
I don't
quite
know
have
that-
the words, but yes, it
yeah,
is a
it's apples and
historic
oranges.
Well, it's oranges and tangerines.
It's,
Okay,
it's delicious in Macintosh. It's a different apple, but it's the same thing.
Yes, but we do have to come to the voters and we
Right.
would start doing that by coming to the planning board. Although we don't have to. The reason we have a historic district is after the planning board at the time didn't want anything to do with it. The Heritage Commission went to the voters and after it was entirely disapproved by the planning board and the voters voted it in. So it was done by petition.
yeah, I'm just concerned that we're preventing progress by not supporting this. I understand that it doesn't have the regulations and the additional detail, But if it gives the Heritage Commission a designation where they can use this to help them to some degree get grants to help them maintain the buildings that are in dire need of maintenance, what's wrong with that? They can worry about the rules next year.
Yeah.
It's an overlay.
Right.
The word overlay is purposeful.
Yeah, it has to have overlay in the title to designate that it accepts all local zoning that applies.
I just don't see enough of a downside to giving them the title, of this amendment.
Have you read the handbook
No,
on,
no.
okay, I take it that Kurt has read that document?
Which one?
It's the one on, local historic districts put out
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at one
by,
right now.
put out by, I think, the state
Well,
historic preservation
Yeah.
people.
to my point, is there a downside?
I don't know that there is a downside to it, but following the guidelines,
Okay.
recommendations,
Okay,
and
fair enough.
and looking at the model ordinance that is provided in that handbook, it says you should have some standards.
Okay.
I'm gonna
And
call the question.
question has been called.
We don't have,
Because all we're doing is bringing
We
it
don't-
forward to a public hearing.
Yeah.
We don't have we do have a question on.
We do.
Yeah.
The question that's on
The
is,
question is, shall we advance that? And are we in favor of that language?
So what this would do, because I'm a newbie, how long do I get to say that?
At
This
least 3
You
years.
can say that for the rest of this year.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So this would bring it to the hearing where it gets discussed again.
Yes.
Oh, come on, people, let's do this. Okay.
all right, vote to approve it.
Okay, vote to approve. All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? Abstentions? Looks like the ayes have it. Four to three.
Yeah, who is making the motion?
That's what was
I
it.
called the question, so I made the motion.
Okay.
Dan did.
And who seconded?
Brad did,
Brad seconded.
because he said, let's go.
Sorry, I'm not up on Robert's rules yet.
We're loose on those there. but-
All right.
Yeah.
I guess that concludes
Our
the
business,
language.
and you were wrong.
There's no old business.
Well, there is, actually, and
You were wrong.
What
It
is that?
took 3 hours.
Come on, round it down, not up.
so, and I think we need to pay attention to this old business section, if we carry forward items that are old business. One of which we said would be old business from the last meeting was the grant application status update. That's for the zoning. ordinance.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That
Okay,
heard it brought up the question of 30-foot height measurement. We never really resolved that, so that's one. Second one was another one you suggested was a procedural handout you could give to the community that explained how the meeting is run. So I'm not suggesting we take up any of these tonight. It's just that those are.
Keep them on our radar.
If there is old business.
okay.
Yeah.
I will,
I think that's appropriate.
if people want to hear about the status of the grant application, I will do it in 60 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, the select board is in favor of it. I have submitted a draft version to the granting organization for their review and comment. Due to the holiday, they will not be meeting again until January. I believe it will be I think they meet on Wednesdays. So the first Wednesday in January, they should meet, and I hope they will get back to me with their comments, before we have our next meeting. No guarantee.
And the select board supported you going forward,
They did,
because I was at the meeting.
they did. Thank you for keeping me honest.
Well, no, because the question was, do we go or does the select board go?
We, that,
And they
that,
said, you guys go and we support it.
is that what they said?
Yes.
Okay,
That's what they said.
all right.
I make a motion to adjourn, or is it too early?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
Second.
All right, motion made to adjourn and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Attention, we are adjourned at,
Still recording.
9:25.
Yeah. I tried, yeah. they wouldn't
Whitney's gonna
open
kill
up.
it.
Yeah, the state one.
Yeah. Kill the eye in the sky.
That neighbor.
Stop the recording.
Next meeting?
Okay.
It's where you get that. And the whole